the Stinky Popcorn Boys.
We watch movies and eat popcorn. And you're stinky.
Hello. We are the Stinky Popcorn Boys, just some boys talking about movies and how they made us feel. I am Patrick Basquill, and I'm the lackadaisical late-game concierge at the famous hotel.
I'm John Gilardi, and I guess you can call me man with apple or boy with apple. I don't know. I couldn't think of anything clever. As I was saying, I was like, this isn't clever. But I wanted the boy with apple, I just thought was so funny, and I wanted to say it.
I love that it's so small.
Yeah. It's just,
I love that it's so small.
And just direct. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Well,
That's what a lot of those painters are. Like, it's like self-portrait number 52, and it's like, you know, or it's like old lady with wheelbarrow, and it's like, damn, Van Gogh, that's pretty as shit. But it is just an old lady with a wheelbarrow.
I love that. Well, I mean, it's almost like anti-pretentious. It's like almost so anti-pretentious it's pretentious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you could have called it old lady with a wheelbarrow of potatoes, and it's during a famine or something. I don't know. You could call it strife or winter's strife or something stupid, and that's pretentious. But then you subvert that by just saying what's on there, and it's like it's just like that's pretentious in itself because it's just like I don't know. It's like
It's like you're saying it's like, oh yeah, this is an important. I'm taking away the importance of it by just naming it what it is, and what you take away from it is what you take away from it, and that's art, baby.
Indeed. So,
what are we talking about today? Today we're talking about the 2014 entry into the symmetrical entries of one Messer Wes Anderson, graduate of the University of Texas and the first love of many a film student, starring a litany of large actors playing a variety of differently sized roles. Some of you may recognize and some you may not recognize in the moment, including Ralph Fiennes, Willem Dafoe, Adrian Brody, Tilda Swinton, Bill Murray, and many more.
Owen Wilson.
There you go.
Can't forget Mobius.
Hit it again.
Yep.
Jason Schwartzman. Yep. I actually left that out because I wanted to see if you would do it.
Yeah. So to fill you in, this is our second time recording. We ran out of batteries the first time around, and there was no spare batteries.
Hey, listen, put it on who's responsible. As I was in the middle of a COVID scare, and I took my stuff home, and I didn't have extra batteries.
Well,
it's on me. It's on me, guys.
Never make that mistake again.
Well,
probably. Batteries are one of those weird things. But especially
like you either have too many of them. Yeah.
Like the recorders we use 4 batteries, which is pretty beefy. But anyway, so yeah, this is the Grand Budapest Hotel, as you meant by Wes Anderson, who's a modern auteur. Those who don't know what auteur means, it's like
auteur?
Auteur? One of those two. I don't know. It's basically an artist film director, a visionary, a very stylized signature style.
Yeah.
And so we'll get into that later. But the Grand Budapest Hotel is essentially a story
tell
and
us about it, baby.
A story about this hotel in the age of concierges. There was a time when you could go on vacation to these wonderful hotels in the mountains or wherever, and there were these like wonderful hotels where you could be for weeks to maybe months on end on a true holiday. You know, it was a very in the classical sense
holiday.
Of bourgeoisie, a bougie activity, or kind of, you know, you had to be to do that kind of form of leisure. So you had top-notch service and top-notch facilities and hotels, and so these concierges, I guess, are in this movie at least a symbol, and maybe in real life they were, of that hospitality. And so that's kind of the backdrop of it, and it's at the heyday, the edge, the twilight of the grand hotels, you know. And so this is kind of the telling of that final last hurrah, you know, right before a stand-in for World War II. So it's I don't know if that's a good synopsis, but I kind of set up the scene. That's a pretty good synopsis.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's an interesting thing too because it's like very much a European thing that I think is probably carried over somewhat, where it's like, yeah, you go and you stay somewhere for 2 weeks, and that's you're going on holiday, rather than if you like here where it's like, hey, we're gonna go across, we're gonna see the Grand Canyon, we're gonna see the sights, but it's like kind of like a point A to point B to point C, which like we're gonna see as much as we can. Whereas like I feel like the European model of it is just like we're gonna go to the Grand Budapest Hotel and we're gonna live there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the Titanic and those old luxurious cruise liners too. Like that was just a long time of on holiday, and then you're going to some place on holiday too.
Yeah.
So it's just all these people had so much time. No wonder there was such a class warfare disgruntledness. Like, fuck you guys, you're fucking off for a good portion of the year while I'm working every single day of the week.
Yeah. But yeah, you kind of talked about, you hit that a little bit where you were like, hey, this isn't a story within a story. And, you know, that's something I wanted to like, you know, especially kind of with how we talked about last week with how, for at least for myself, how I viewed The Green Knight as like the synesthesia of reading a book as it goes through the different sections, how the sections feel like a little bit different and a little bit the same. But it's like with this book, and we can't have this because we already had this discovery or whatever in the last when we failed at the recording of it. But like that, the perception of this book is it's a girl, probably like 16 to 18, maybe 14 to 18, almost impossible to tell. But she's reading a book at the statue of the author, who then tells the story of the book. And then so she's reading it, and then he's telling it, and then we see his retelling of it, and that's our like main movie.
Well, also you touched on like the way how they're different, but the aspect ratio changes through each perspective too.
Yeah,
that's just a subtle little thing. But throughout it, you keep that kind of quintessential symmetry that Wes Anderson's probably really well known for. I think there's definitely like the cast and the types of characters and the tones that people are talking and the dryness to it, but visually it's hard to get past the symmetry.
Yeah.
And with these smaller frames, the 4x3, you really notice it, and it's really cool to see how they creatively, because it's already, to modern movie watchers, it's already a pretty confined space, so it's really neat to see what he does with that, you know, especially as this visionary, which we'll get into the film student thing later, but
yeah, he packs it in. But I think that having that sort of like the guise of being about a book or being told through this girl reading the book, having this guy tell it, it's like it makes those storybook elements and is able to like really like jump off on them, where it's like I said, where he's able to do the best of what he's always been able to do, and he like puts it in the package where it makes the most sense, where it's like he's got his miniatures and he's got his like surreal movement as far as like speed and going from place to place, and his like over the top characters who are like especially dry, and it's like put through this lens where it makes the most amount of sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of like off the storybook thing, there's a lot of whimsical, surrealist kind of energy where sometimes it can feel like a dream or a storybook, you know, this idea, and that's why you buy it so much. And this one, it has like that diegetic kind of the thing that you can attribute to why it feels like this stylistically, you know, you could say, oh, this is just is the way the artist is, or you could say this is the way that I feel a story is. You know, this feels like a story, which sounds stupid because every movie is a story, but like it feels like a retelling. It feels like an interpretation of a retelling. It feels kind of detached from reality in the sense that it is a recollection of memories and not of fact. And so a lot of that comes down to the way it looks. But I think that's a lot of just, I mean, the storytelling and the performances. I mean, everything just comes together. I don't know. I'm kind of, and you know, it's not even the miniatures and that kind of stuff too helps, because it's like a rickety, weird tangibleness that just feels like you see it. You obviously know it's not real, but it's familiar. It's stylized. It's fun to look at. But even from that, there's this depth and this framing of shots, where you have pillars framing the subjects, like the pillars in the foreground, and then in the back are the actors or the moving pieces. So the symmetry isn't just there to balance the frame; it's also there to work and put frames within a frames, and it just helps that storybook thing, like a picture or a piece of art, is always going to be framed. So then you have moving frames or moving things framed within a shot in these creative ways. It translates that even further.
I mean,
so there's crazy layers. There's a crazy Venn diagram of techniques and things that he's doing that kind of like Venn diagram into just storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, that's
kind of things. I don't know.
That's one of the things that I think is the coolest, is that because you can get into like symmetry and like, oh, here it is, here it is. Oh, things are lined up on either side, and we've got like our essential tenets of design or whatever, where things match on either side, and we have colors that kind of run throughout. But one of the things that Wes Anderson does a really good job of is, making that every frame a painting or whatever. That's like, I think it's a book or it's it's some sort of thing where it's essentially a frame. It's like every frame should be a painting, however you move it. And it's like one of the things he does with that, one of the things that paintings are two-dimensional, but they are able to create this sense of depth, and that's what good painters do. They give you this sense of depth with shadows and light and different colors, and like sort of like the texture of stuff even. Different painters do it different ways, and that's one of the things that isn't lost with Wes Anderson, where it's like sometimes you can set up a beautiful image, but then you like kind of lack the depth. And I think that kind of goes both ways, as far as like metaphorically with storytelling, is there's a lot of depth to just like the characters and the story that we're telling, especially in this one. And then also like the depth in the actual scenes in each shot, that this is a big real place, and I think that's one of the things that it's like you can have depth, but the beauty is in the depth, where you find the flaws and you find the humanity, where you have like one of the opening things where Jude Law, who plays the young author, is like going up whenever Jason Schwartzman has to go do the Heimlich on the thing, and it's a beautifully arranged shot, and they're on one side of the frame and he's on the other side of the frame, and it's this man who's fucking choking to death, and he needs to get the Heimlich, and it's just funny, because it's such a beautifully arranged shot, but having that really, it keeps it grounded and keeps it real and keeps it fun.
Well, that's, to piggyback off of that, the movie, whatever you want to say, is so comforting to watch due to that kind of just whimsical state I've been rambling about. But like even so much that, someone's like unceremoniously choking on a hot dog or whatever the hell, and it's like it's pleasing to look at still. The whole movie is even like there's pretty dire moments, and there's death, and there's the war and dealing with like these kind of pseudo Nazis and false imprisonment and all these, like, there are stakes throughout all of this, but it never stresses you out. You do worry and whatever, but it never stresses you out because you're just along for this kind of essentially fun and comforting and interesting ride. And I guess before we get too further along on things about it, I guess. So the movie's, I guess, main conflict, or just a little bit. We already synopsized the movie, but for those who haven't seen it, kind of. So the
Give
main,
it to him, John.
So the main kind of thing. So we have this again, the concierge, Gustav, and then we have the lobby boy, and so the war is
Zero Mustafa.
Yep, zero, and so there's so Gustav. He's he's a prolific concierge, and he also like has a thing for older women.
Yeah,
and so,
he's prolific.
I'm sure a lot of them fall in love with him, but this one particular one, played by Tilda Swinton, dies, and she kind of grants him this priceless painting, and he goes to claim it, and then the family's all, flustered and upset that he got Boy with Apple, and like it's just funny, the energy and the like you just know Boy with Apple's a big deal with how everyone's reacting and the fact that he got it, and so he has a right to it, but there's conflict, but he just takes it anyways, and so there's this wild goose chase, pretty much more or less throughout the whole movie, and so that's kind of the setting, more or less.
Well, is it a wild goose chase?
Not really, but there is a wild goose chase at one point on
Is
skis,
there a wild?
on skis and on the bobsled.
Well, but all right, but well, I guess I'm being a stick picky about the semantics.
Yeah, I mean this movie is not a chase movie or anything. It was phrasing, but so that's kind of the backdrop. There's a lot of intrigue, kind of a whodunit, with some elements there. But I mean, that's more or less the movie as a whole. I just wanted to synopsize it and kind of have the main driving conflict.
It's definitely like sort of the building blocks. It's one of my favorite kind of stories where it's like, oh my gosh, like the author, Jude Law, the author, he goes to the Grand Budapest Hotel at the end of the 60s or whatever, or end of the 50s. I don't fucking know. But he goes to it at some indeterminate time after this has all happened, and he meets Zero, and he's like, "Oh wow, you're such a great man." And then the great man is like, "You think I'm a great man? I'm only a great man because of this fucking greater man who's fucking dope as shit." And I love that sort of like that story of like the man or woman, or fucking centaur, whatever, whoever is like the person behind the person who then became great, is always like a really interesting and fun story where you get to see like the hero, the great man, in his faults or in his like infancy of being a hero, while seeing the end of the hero's journey for another hero. It's always really fun.
Yeah.
And I mean, plus like Gustav is such a fucking good character where it's he is so like absolutely over the top, but so kind at the same time. Like even like that he's such a stickler. I mean, and we get introduced to him right away. And in that first scene where he's got people roving around him like he's this like son, and everyone he's like, put that by the table, put those on top of the table, put those by the window, open this wide, don't look at the blah blah blah. And he's like going through and he's running through the thing. He's got stuff so set up, and then he goes in and it cuts to this scene with him and Tilda Swinton, and like he has this, and we're starting to build this like idea of him as this big great person. Whoa, he's got everything put together. And like he's like really like crisp and to a T, everything to a T, and he's so good. And then all of a sudden he's like, "My God, what the fuck did happen to your nails?" Or like whatever the thing was, like, Jesus Christ, who fucking did this? And it's just like where it's like whoop, you twisted on us. There we go.
Yeah,
He's
a fun character where he's so high energy and stuck up and pretentious and bougie in the sense of that high class, as a facilitator of that high class setting, but he never comes across as overbearing or pretentious or anything negative, and he's not shy about his faults either. So it's a really interesting, well-rounded character that has these kind of ostentatious and things like that, but that you can also really like and sympathize with. And so he's a really fun character to watch. And
it's really
and the authority and the confidence he has with things, especially as he's showing Zero around at the beginning, and he's kind of just showing Zero around throughout the whole thing. He's kind of being the mentor for him. Is great. It's a really fun ride, and Ray Fiennes kills it. And I must interject that is, for those that don't know, that is the guy who plays he who must not be named.
Yeah,
or,
he who must not
Voldemort.
be named, or
yeah, but and I think that's something that you said on the last time we tried to record this, that he just goes for it in every role. And I don't know if I know a bunch of Ray Fiennes, but seeing from Harry Potter and Grand Budapest Hotel, I mean, that guy does it. He goes.
He
really
goes,
gives it
dude.
his all.
Yeah, that's a pretty good transition too. because even the last time I was like, have you seen him in Bruges? And I don't think you have yet, but that's a Martin McDonagh film with Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, and Ray Fiennes, among some other people, and it is so fucking good. It is so good, but it also it kind of has like that same sort of like it's like that's like what you graduate to from Boondock Saints. You know what I mean?
Like as a high schooler, like watching movies.
Like if
thinking
you're in high school and you're watching Boondock Saints and you're like, oh fuck yeah, dude, and then you go and you watch In Bruges, and that's like, which again I think that in retrospect, I mean In Bruges is infinitely better. It's much more well written. There's a lot more stuff going on, but on its surface, it is in sort of like a similar vein as like Boondock Saints, where it's like about like sort of like irreverent organized crime, et cetera, et cetera. And there's this fucking fantastic scene with Ray Fiennes where he's just like, he's the mob boss and he's just mad. He's just mad. It's so good. And yeah.
Dang,
you should
yeah,
see it.
Watch it. Yeah.
It's a really good movie. It's by one of my favorite playwrights, Martin McDonagh.
Sweet.
And it's fucking stand out. But it definitely falls in those lines of like movies that people attach themselves to and are like, I like films because I like In Bruges because it's like good, but it's edgy, but it's good, and it's like irreverent and like,
You
which
mean like
I
people
feel like
who use movies to describe their personality?
yeah,
Which can transition to.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. Is like, which is kind of the biggest drawback of Wes Anderson stuff, you know, because it seems like there's a lot of people who sort of like really ascribe to that aesthetic, and I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, but early on, you know, you can get caught up and like really get like, I don't know. It just feels like really gatekeepy where it's like, oh, this is the only thing. I know Wes Anderson. You know,
Yeah.
I get Wes Anderson. Wes Anderson's my favorite.
I mean, I avoided him because of my film school experience and just like everyone talking so highly of him and trying to like aspire and do like just like the film student like thing where everything's emotive or trying to emote these people they like or whatever.
Yeah.
And it just like didn't like that energy, I think. And it was like a lot of just like, you guys were all just idiot kids trying to figure it out. And there's like people thought they were better than you. And then they would try and emote Wes Anderson or talk about him, blah, blah, blah. I was like, fuck that. I ain't watching this shit. So I hadn't watched him for up until Isle of Dogs, which is fairly new. And then I saw him Fantastic Mr. Fox and I've seen this. And that's it. And I've enjoyed all of those things immensely. So it's just, I like his stuff, and it's just a matter of me going back and rewatch, or not even rewatching it, just watching it for the first time.
Yeah.
But I don't think I fucked up or messed up by that, because you know some people are insufferable, and if that's how they wear this artist on their sleeve as an inspiration, you know, I'm not gonna like whatever, you know. it's I don't know. I think you know what I'm saying.
I think it's a really interesting thing too, because like you can kind of look at the way that you perceive and take in art at the different ages, where it's like, you know, initially you can very much like ascribe to the aesthetic and the sort of like cynical ennui, or however you say it, of like the Royal Tenenbaums of Margot, or any of those, of like the sort of like the hopeless romantics, you know, and that sort of the thing that sort of comes up again and again. But then as I got older and I'm going back and I'm sort of like rewatching some of these, then it is like kind of the fuller picture becomes more aware to, like, I become more aware of the full picture, where it's like,
yeah,
oh, Steve Zissou is a narcissist, and this is him realizing that he's a narcissist. Again, you know, I'll try not to ruin any of them as you go through, but it's just like you go through, and the first time you watch it, it's like if you ate a really fucking expensive meal when you were a kid, and you were like, this is really good, but I'm not sure why. But I've had it, so I know what real good things are. And it must be these things. It must be these, it must be like the peppercorns that were built in, to the steak or whatever. It must be this. It must be the sauce that's on top. But then later you go back and you eat that same meal and you're like, oh shit, this is about my entire life. This meal, this is about my mother making me ratatouille. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned it many times before, how rewatching movies that I saw as I was younger in a day, it's a whole new experience / just fun, like kind of seeing what I interpreted as or just picking up things that I didn't see there the first time or couldn't even comprehend. So, I mean, maybe I don't think I could have watched this stuff, any younger than 25 and really have appreciated it. I don't know. I like things slowed down, and I like slower things now. And that the human drama and just compelling stuff is way more interesting to me than that moment-to-moment action. Which, just still be fair on this movie, actually has a very heavy action focus. So it's not to really comment on this movie. But
I mean, Wes Anderson's movies move. Like I'll say that it's like, yeah, there's those moments, but there's those moments, and he keeps those shots. Like he has those theatrical one shots where it's like there's something happening in the background and there's something happening in the foreground, and the thing that's happening in the foreground is the main thing that's happening. But then you cut to the thing in the background, and it's like it's still just 2 shots, but it's been going for 2 minutes, but there's been a lot of action within those 2 shots. And so that's one of the things that he does well, and that's like when he amps up the pace or whenever he sits in a moment, it's important. And and
the camera movement's so great.
He's a good
too.
filmmaker.
Yeah. Well, the camera movement,
that's what I'm saying, basically.
The pans, the tilts, the zoom ins, like all that stuff is so well done, and it's so not handmade feeling, but you can feel the human twisting the focus ring or the zoom ring or whatever, or even the focus ring, whatever, or moving the camera manually. The handmade feel is so good on it, just because. I mean, that's a choice, instead of using motors or whatever. And that's just a nice thing. I forgot where I came in with that is, I guess.
Well, because the handmade feel of it, the whole feel of it. That's what brings people to it. And I think that's one of the reasons maybe that it's so that it's something that's so latch-onable for the film student thing, because it's oh, here's this thing that's about what's happening. It's not about the action. It's about what's happening in the frame, and everything has this sort of handmade feel where it's yeah, you just gotta paint that, and you gotta. It's the commitment to the universe as well, rather than oh, we have to have this big deep lore, or we have to have Dom Toretto, or whatever the thing is. It's if you don't want to make a horror indie film, you make a Wes Anderson stylized non-period piece, period piece. And those are the 2 ways.
Those are the only 2 ways.
Those are the only 2 ways. Or or you make a mumblecore shaky cam Derek Cianfrance or whatever. I think that's how you say his name. Blue Valentine and whatnot, where it's mumblecore, in your face, hard emotions, long shots. Those are the 3 things. You got horror, you've got symmetrical Wes Anderson, period, not period, and then you've got mumblecore in your face.
That's all you got. That's all you can make. That's
all you're allowed to make. How dare you?
Well, speaking of something else endeared me to Wes Anderson, after avoiding him due to fellow classmates and just the notion. Besides enjoying the 3 movies I have seen immensely, I watched a bunch of behind the scenes of this movie because it's cool to see how it's made, which I can get into a second. But
get into it, dude.
Well, I do want to say that I watching it and seeing how he directs and how hands-on and passionate he is, and he's meticulous in a very passionate, creative way. Not so much the David Fincher over the top, what's the word? Anal, kind of ooh, let's move that that thing a little bit, yeah, and then doing a million takes. His meticulousness is passion and a vision. for that sake. And then he just seemed like a normal, down-to-earth guy, and his directing was really fun to watch. So I really if you watch this movie or you've seen it, or I don't know, watch it. And I mean, just watch all the behind-the-scenes stuff you can see and find on YouTube, because it's some of the best behind-the-scenes stuff I've seen. I really enjoyed
Watching
it.
behind-the-scenes stuff of any time, especially if it's something that's well made, is always really good. Like
Yeah,
I
and
even like I even like watching the behind-the-scenes stuff of us, because it's like I get to remember stuff that we did, and like how like sort of the process was, and like kind of go back through that. I always think that's really fun.
I'm a fiend. I'm a fool. I'm a sucker for all that stuff. Like that's cool to me. The process is just as cool as the end product. And I don't think that's a unique thing, but I think if it's something you haven't tried, I definitely very much encourage you to look into that kind of stuff. You know, it makes you respect the craft, whatever it is. You know, woodworking, to film, to textiles. I don't know, like you know,
Plushies.
What was that?
Plushies, notebooks.
Yeah, mozzarella cheese. That whole process.
Yeah. Anything food related. Anything where you start out like from like the bare minimum, you have eggs and flour, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's penne pasta. How do we do that?
Yeah, I had some homemade fresh pot stuff from the North End in Boston this last weekend, so that was good.
Oh, wow, dude.
Yeah, and sorry to rub it in your face.
You rubbed it right in my face.
Yep.
I made some really good chicken. That's it.
Hey,
I made
chicken.
Yeah.
Chicken's good, especially if it's really good.
Yeah, I knocked it out of the park, dude. Put it on the grill, put it in some tinfoil, cracked some fucking garlic cloves in there, let them steam in there with that chicken. Simple salt and pepper.
Ooh.
Juicy as hell.
That sounds good.
I did a great job. I was very proud of that very simple chicken.
Yeah. Simple chicken. You should make a restaurant and call it Simple Chicken.
They're like, hey, could I get anything else? No. It's just various herbs in tinfoil on a grill. Sometimes it's garlic. Sometimes it's rosemary. Sometimes we got tarragon.
That's all it is. Simple chicken.
That's it. That's all there is. I want to talk for a second about the how just because you said it, and it's funny, it's interesting to me about how other people's opinions shape what you consume.
Yeah, that's a very real thing, especially the younger you are. Like there's two sides of it. There's the me being adverse or staying away from something because of others. There's also me liking things to be cool or to not be ridiculed. So I don't know, like music is the easiest one, you know, like guilty pleasures. Like every middle schooler has probably 1,000,001 guilty pleasures that they are just songs they actually love, you know.
Oh yeah.
So there's the two sides of it. So I don't know what side you're going to get into.
I just think that it's interesting how it's like I don't think that you could have liked Wes Anderson until you got far enough away and grew up, because
maybe I was just jealous of them and that I wasn't as much of an intellectual as them.
Well,
or maybe I was bitter because they were pretending they liked it, you know, and they didn't understand it themselves.
I mean, and you could kind of go either way with that, but the end result is that I don't think that you could have enjoyed it until now, because, but it's like, how are you supposed to, because they talked about it so much. I'll finish that thought. Sorry. Because they talked about it so much, because they were like, hey, fucking, oh my God, you're going to love Wes Anderson. Everybody loves Wes Anderson. It's so pretty, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, in Young John, you're like, fuck you. Get out of here. And I don't know, like, I'm not smart enough to be able to figure out what that is, but it's like, nah. Like, I don't think, for example, my brother was like really into the Doors when he was like 16, and he was like, you gotta listen to the Doors. I love the fucking Doors. And I was like, I'm not gonna listen to the Doors. I don't like the Doors. And it was like a point of contention. And it was like, I'm not gonna, I mean, I might go and listen to the Doors now, but it's not until, because there's gotta be some sort of thing where it's like, if someone is like, you got to listen to this. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. And I don't know if there's
Well,
part
I
of,
will say Light My Fire by The Doors is a really good song, or could be a really good song if it wasn't for the 5-minute keyboard weird solo in the middle of it. Like I love the whole chorus and hook on that and the instrumental, but then it just goes on forever. That's just something I want to get off my chest. But
thank you. Hey, that's what this is for.
Yeah. No, it's a crazy thing. It's especially again in those special that special 11 to 17-year-olds kind of area. And I think that's a lot to do with just that crazy time that is, and the self-actualization and finding out who you are, and
because
the fragility
you very much
of hormones and trying to fit in and bullying and all these different things.
Yeah, and you're trying to ascribe what you're like, who the fuck you are, and so it's like you're trying to figure out who the fuck you are. And like, I guess maybe it's like, and when a person likes something that much, that then they ascribe their personality to it and begin to sort of like emulate those aspects before you've gone on that journey with them as well. Whether or not they're your friends or, acquaintances, and you're like, actually, I will, because it's like you associate that person with that thing, and you're like, I don't like this thing because I don't like what you're doing right now. I don't like how you're being right now, and I don't want to make that. I don't want to make that part of my personality because that's what you're saying. It's like, oh, this is going to be part of my personality.
Yeah,
when you're adding something,
it's their personality. And it's something they've attributed themselves, so you're like, well, that's not me, and you already set that whole recommendation kind of culture or whatever you want. I don't know, just like your brother's doomed himself recommending it the moment he made it about him, like not about himself, but like that he made it part of his identity. It's because it's like you're not him. I mean, maybe if you are like him, then I don't know. I could still see. I don't know. It's a weird thing of individualism. It's a whole mess.
Especially in that time where it's like it is much more of like an insistence of like you have to listen to the Doors, you have to like Wes Anderson, or you're not going to be cool, or whatever the thing is. Where it's like I can not like the Doors, or I can not like Wes Anderson and still be cool and not be part of your little gang. So there, huh? How you like that? How you like that, huh?
Call your
I'm
brother
my own
up.
person. Yeah, I'm gonna call him up right now. Hey, bud, shut the fuck up. Yeah, I'm the Lizard King. That's one of them.
Yeah,
but just to get back to getting back to sweet old Wessie.
Well, I want to talk about the technical side of it.
Talk about the technical side of it. Get
obviously
into it, John.
The kind of the backdrop is this grand hotel, this bygone area of nice hotels or whatever. So they wanted to film in one and they couldn't find one, and they realized they don't exist anymore, which kind of makes this an even more love lettery kind of cool piece, I guess. But that goes on to say that they found a spot they could actually outfit, which was an old mall in Germany, and they used that as the set, and like everything, like the sets within the sets, like the train and all these different things were just done there. And it was, even the front of the prison when he goes to visit Gustav, when Zero goes to visit Gustav, that's just out front of the that same building, just with green screens. So it's really cool that they would do that. And then I don't know, just that creativity and with using that confined space, and so they had the hotel lobby for the the decadent era, and then when they made it for the 1960s, they just shrank it down and built within that space. And
oh, weird.
Yeah, so it's actually smaller, and you'll notice it if you pick it up whenever you rewatch it. But yeah, I don't know. It just, you got to watch it. And I know I can't like what I've just said wasn't too illustrative or interesting, but I just want
Yeah.
to bring attention to that, like, watch this movie and watch behind the scenes. It's really cool. It's pure creativity. It's like love of art and film, which is refreshing. And these kinds of movies are being made where there's a love for art and film. But like if you're like 99% of everyone, you're watching the cool new TV shows on TV or the Marvel movies or whatever, the mainstream stuff. So you're not seeing that as much, even if it's out there. So do yourself a favor and watch this movie and dive into that stuff. That's your jam.
Yeah.
That was super fulfilling for me.
Dive freaking into it, guys. I would like to say it's like that's like my dream. I have like several sort of like story ideas. They're like essentially one place where it's like, oh, we go stay on an island and it's like summer camp, but we shoot a movie. And it's like, that sounds like, oh, we stay in this hotel like they did with Scrubs. You know how they did Scrubs? They all essentially, they bought this old hospital and were able to keep all the old fucking medical gear, but then also like their production, I don't know, there's a podcast about it, but it's like their production offices were on like the 3rd and 4th levels, and they had like makeup and stuff on the 5th level, and they had it like arranged where it's like the whole Scrubs unit, from wardrobe to makeup to everything, and they had like a bigger room that they used as like sort of like the studio where they did like dream sequencey stuffs, and then like everything at like it was within this one building, which is like, that's a fucking dream. That's fucking cool as shit.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a space that can be used not only for this particular comedy or TV show, but anything with like hospitals, because apparently that's a big deal. Those hospital dramas, they're out there.
They love them.
I mean, a crazy thing is Tyler Perry in his like studio area, he has like a full-on built replica of the White House, among many other things that I don't know because I've only seen the White House thing. But I saw that, I was like, I want to know more. I never followed up on it, but it's really cool.
That man goes hard.
Yeah,
Tyler Perry goes hard in everything
hard
he
in
does.
The paint.
He does. He goes hard in the paint, dude. Even whenever he's just playing in Gone Girl, that dude goes hard.
That was an interesting movie. I saw only once, and I think I need to see it again.
It's really good. I mean, I really like it. I like Fincher.
Get some Ben Affleck dong in there.
Yeah, just a little.
Was that the movie?
I think he's got a little dong in there. It's a medium. It's a fine. He's got a little dong in there. Little dingle dongle.
Have you seen Have you seen The Town?
I have seen The Town.
I like
so you got dong in that too?
No, just Ben Affleck. But I was in Boston this weekend, so I was in Boston as the movie's in The Town.
Did you watch The Departed? You watched The Departed in The Town?
Been a minute since I watched The Departed.
The Departed's fucking good.
At that Italian restaurant in the North End, I was like 60% sure I was facing Martin Scorsese. I didn't feel too strong about it, but the guy looked just like him, and I was like, I mean, this would make sense to see him here.
If he's not in Oklahoma shooting Killers of the Flower Moon right now, I'll eat my own butt.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I saw him, but he looked a lot like him. He had like the same hair, the same bushy eyebrows, the same like big glasses. He even flipped them up so he didn't have to, so he could eat. It was just like
unless he like took the weekend off. They had like the weekend off, and he went up to Boston to be in Boston because he loves the way it smells or something. Yeah.
Have you been to the North End?
I don't know. I have been to Boston, but I don't know where I was. My dad ran the Boston Marathon and in 2015, I want to say. And then, man, it was, I tried to, here's a fun story. My dad ran the Boston Marathon, and I was like, hell yeah, I've got like 4 hours to kill, or 3.5 hours. So there's like a little app where you can track people, to keep track of their progress. So like you can like see from like wherever. And so I was keeping track of where he was, and like he was like at mile 12 or whatever. And I was like, I'm gonna go and start making my way down there, or like mile 9 or whatever. I'm gonna start making my way down there, and I have all of his stuff. I have his keys, I have his phone, I have his wallet, and I'm gonna start. So I start making my way down there, and at some point, I realize that I'm on the wrong side of the street. because of the bombing, they won't let you get. They're not going to let you cross. There's no place to cross. You have to walk to where there is a cross. There's no like set areas. Like they've got it fucking locked down. And so I spend literally like my dad has finished the race and he had like a fucking hurt hamstring, but he was like, I qualified for Boston. I'm going to run it anyway, even though I'm going to do bad. So he ran Boston and he has no phone. He has nothing. He has no wallet. He has no keys. He has nothing. I have that stuff, but I'm on the wrong side of the street from where the people are getting off. So I spend like 2 hours after I get there and like an hour and a half after he's done. He's been sitting in his fucking like tinfoil blanket in an Irish pub watching people, watching the other side of the street as I like finally make it over to him after like literally crying at a guard as a 26-year-old or 25-year-old, however old I was, like being like, can I please just, I know I'm on the wrong side of the street. Will you please just, and he's like, no, but you can go around. Here's a place where you can go around, you know, try over there. And I finally make it. I don't even remember how. I was in such like a panic. I was so tired. I was so hungry. And I had all my dad's stuff. I felt so bad because he's there with this fucking shattered hamstring and he's just run 26.2 miles. And it's like, I have no way to help him. And I'm on the wrong side of the street. And the only way, and it was just, but I did find him. And that's my Boston experience. And then I went to Fenway Park the day before or something like that. And that was really cool. But
So you had a good time.
I had a good time.
Yeah, I've toured Fenway Park, but I haven't seen a ball game there, which I really want to do.
Ball game day?
Nah.
Gotta get you one.
Yeah, we had some time to kill and we were hungry, so we actually got to eat. They have a bar there inside the green. It's inside the Green Monster, and you don't have to buy a ticket. So we just went in and ate, had a quick lunch, pretty good, and you can see out the window. We're kind of like more center field than the Green Monster, but you could like see it, and they hit a home run. It was cool.
Damn. That's wild. That's so funny. They've commodified those bleacher seats on top of the Wrigley Field like houses. I'm pretty sure commodified. Like those are like actually part of like Wrigley Field somehow or something.
I think they bought them out. I think the team bought those buildings.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
Which is like, it's like that's so wild. I bet you the Giants have some sort of thing with the McCovey Bay or McCovey Cove or whatever it is.
Oh, probably. I mean, that's why the Green Monster exists, was to block out people who could watch it from the train yard or top of buildings or whatever.
Huh.
Yeah, that's baseball ballparks, you know, you come here for the Grand Budapest Hotel podcast and you leave at that.
That's one of my favorite things about baseball fields is that they're all different. Like, they're all the same, but like Fenway Park has a different, it's got the Green Monster, but it's like different too. Like, Wrigley Field, they're all like a little bit different. They've got a little bit different thing. Like even the fucking ugly ass Marlins like statue in the distance, like of like the center field. It's like that's part of the thing. You get hit the ball into a hot tub at Tropicana Field in Tampa Bay.
I mean, I never played baseball and I don't watch it right now, but I read a whole book on ballparks. I was like, hell yeah. It's super fascinating how it's different, and it's been in America since the 1860s. So it really is America's pastime, you know, even though it feels like it's disappearing. And the ballpark is an American tradition, so it's really cool to see the evolution of that, you know, from these wooden bleachers things to the classic era of the brick buildings and these nice facades, which like Fenway Park was in Yankee Stadium and Wrigley. And then you transition to the megaplexes, and then now we're back in that classic age of the kind of
Veterans Park, Rogers Center, etc.
Yep.
Did you get the chance to watch the Field of Dreams game?
No, I was really seeing the highlights though, and that was crazy.
It was a
so
great
good
game
for the sport.
It was such a good game. Like it was like the first like good baseball game that I've seen in a while, where it was like, oh, this is interesting. Oh, this is fun. Here we go. Hey. Just one last thing that I want to say about Wes Anderson. Not Wes Anderson individually. You also, John, should see more Wes Anderson movies just because it's like they're good. They're just good movies. They're a lot of fun. And
I want to.
there's more depth to them than maybe originally thought.
Oh, there's so much depth. There's so much happening in the frames. There's little like Easter eggs and snippets you'll catch, and they add so much flavor or just a funny laugh.
But I want to talk about this movie, and I talked about this last time, and I still think it holds up, where it's like this is Wes Anderson's Inglourious Bastards, in terms of like, or you could even say like The Social Network for David Fincher, where it's like the perfect blend of his style mixed with the epitome of depth that he can bring. Where it's like for Inglourious Bastards, you have Quentin Tarantino and his sort of like popcorn storytelling, where it's like each part sort of influences the next part, where it's sort of like an improv set, where it's like we have our opening scene and that influences our next little bit, and that influences our next little bit, and we kind of like build a ladder, we build a thing until we get to this epitome, this peak of the thing, and it's got all of his stuff. And the same thing, I've talked about The Social Network before, where it's like that's just fits what David Fincher wants to do. And then for this, you have like the perfect combination of like the class and like the storybook setting that he sets up with the little girl reading the story, and like it's an author, so it's allowed to be sort of like surreal and like super put together, because that's how you put it together in your mind when you're reading a book. Or that's how he's like he's describing it in a ultra real way when he's writing the book. And then you have like his like build, like the same building, the sort of like the comic building, the dry characters, and it's like the perfect Wes Anderson package. And I just think it's funny that both Inglourious Bastards is like sort of is World War II, and then sort of a rewriting of history through our story, and then in the Grand Budapest Hotel, where it's like a World War II sort of allegory. It's like very clearly it's World War II and the Nazis, and then like a rewriting of history, where I'm pretty sure in the end, whenever he takes control of the fortune, he is able to he solves it for the most part, but then he gets murdered. But it feels like they rewrite history a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's more just a backdrop, and it's just it's just purely telling the story you wanted to tell, and not bending anything around any feasibility or any timelines. It's just purely convenience based storytelling with the backdrop, so you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. And I love that, and I think that's a really liberating way to use a backdrop, and I don't think anyone has any issue with it, And
that's what I was going to say too, that it's like funny that this came after Fantastic Mr. Fox, where he did all that work with miniatures and stop motion stuff. And so I wonder if this was a movie that he had like kind of in his back pocket, but he didn't want to have to like bend, like you were saying, bend to any of those restrictions and find like a location. He wanted a place that he could build so that it would look exactly like this, And I wonder how much of his process, of Wes Anderson's process, is like finding the place that looks like the thing that he needs, and then how much he can bend it determines whether or not he uses it, as far as like, because, I mean, his production design team has got to be fucking just like the best.
Yeah, I'm curious how much he has to do with giving that direction, Or is it just a crew that understands what he's doing, or he just trusts? I don't know.
I think it's got to be him, because it's so consistent.
Well, I think he's obviously the director and has his hands in everything, but I think he's probably in some ways the head of the production team. Even like the letters and newspaper articles and all these different things, he hand writes them all, and he writes like the actual full-on articles. He writes full-on fictional newspapers about shit going on in this fictional version of Earth. So without a doubt, I'd say his involvement in that is very heavy, and to the point where, without knowing anything, I'd say he's maybe production like the department head,
Which is probably why he goes back to the stop motion thing, is because that's something that he can control, all the way through. Interesting.
Dang. Well,
interesting.
what do you give this flick?
I'll give it 4 out of 5, baby. I'll give it 4 out of 5 priceless paintings.
Well, I gave it four boys with apples out of 5. So there's one boy with no apple. So
He's got no apple, that boy.
I love this film.
You know
I thought
what?
it was delightful, and I enjoyed it.
I'll do 4 out of 5 little profiteroles from Mendel's.
Ooh, that overly complicated sandwich. So what have you been watching?
Well, I watched this movie called The Green Knight again.
You watched it again? Was it better?
I went to go see. Yeah, it's still really fucking good. I still love it. I'll give it 4.75 out of 5 still. I'll give it another 0.5. I fucking love it. I watched Only Lovers Left Alive. I've been on like a weird Tom Hiddleston kick. Either Tom Hiddleston or Philip Seymour Hoffman. I'm like, let me get those guys. I also watched The White Lotus, which was a show on HBO, a little miniseries that's really fucking funny. And Mike Birbiglia's new one, a stand-up special. Yeah.
All right.
But watch.
I watched. Sorry. Did you have more?
No, that's it.
All right, I watched The Old Guard. I read the first 2 books, graphic novels, and I watched the movie. It's a Netflix movie with Charlize Theron. Pretty good.
Nice.
Well, no, the graphic novels are really good, and the movie was all right. It was a fair adaptation.
That movie happened.
Yeah, it was more fun to really like the graphic novel and enjoy the shit out of that, and then just see it real, Yeah. But if it was just a movie I watch, I'm like, whatever. But the theming of living forever and stuff is really fascinating, and they explore it in really, really cool ways. So you can get that from the movie, but I recommend reading the graphic novel. And then I watched Iron Man 3 on my lackadaisical Marvel kind of rewatch through.
Your slow meander through the MCU.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, through the MCU.
I like it. I liked Iron Man 2, and I like Thor 2. Like I like the first Thor, like all these ones that aren't people like too much or not known for being the better ones. I'm still enjoying the ride. I still enjoy these movies, so
you're like, I'm still about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here for it. I'm in. I'm not too concerned. There's Marvel fans who don't even touch these movies after one view. I think that's maybe because they're Marvel fans. But I'm an MCU fan, I guess, or something. I don't know. I like these movies, and I can rewatch them. So
yeah. Speaking of that, talking about fucking that trailer that they just dropped.
Oh no, that was crazy. That'll be an event of a movie, I think. Obviously, they all are, but that'll be really cool because that's pulling in some old nostalgia, and I would argue for a lot of people, some of the very first superhero movies with the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans.
Yeah, I think it's essentially because it's really fun. I'm really interested to see what they're gonna do with it because this is like essentially like the Avengers or Civil War where they had all this they have all this jazz building with the Loki and Wanda stuff, and now I feel like, especially too, because and I can't talk about this enough, how you could talk. I'm sort of tired of superheroes or whatever, and maybe I'm reaching the end of it, but it still holds me. And the unified storytelling, for the most part, the fact that they were able to go Iron Man or Incredible Hulk, whichever one you want to technically count as the beginning, but you want to go Iron Man to Endgame, is the fact that they were able to do that, to do what they were able to do. Or even Homecoming, if you want to include Homecoming, as I think Homecoming is technically included as like the epilogue to Phase 3 or whatever. And it's like, that's incredible. And now they got to follow that like once in a lifetime. They got to figure out a way to keep it going. I think that it's either going to be packed with so much stuff and not be bad enough that where it's like Spider-Man 3 where it's like, this is just packed with too much stuff. Or it's going to be packed with so much stuff and it's going to be put together really well and then strung out and then strung to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, where that will be another big event movie. I
Yeah,
don't
they're
know.
really going in on the multiverse shit, with this new era, which I'm cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's just they're really going for it, I guess. Like
Yeah.
right off the bat. We have a slight touch of it with Wanda with her kids, and
And the Pietro
Quicksilver.
thing.
Yeah, Pietro, and then obviously Loki goes I think it's the cataclysmic movie, and then we have Spider-Man. Obviously, that's my multiverse, and then we have the Doctor Strange movie. So it's interesting, and obviously He Who Remains or whatever his name is going to be the big bad. So this is me fun. I think
Kang the Conqueror, baby.
that's it. That's the name. Jonathan Majors.
Jonathan Majors, Kang the Conqueror. What's really funny is that man has an opportunity to do some like really cool shit because I was reading it a little bit, but one of the Kang the Conqueror variants goes back in time and becomes like essentially an Iron Man knockoff. He becomes Iron Lad and is a part of the Young Avengers or something. So it's interesting.
Jeez. So I want to get into like reading the comics and stuff. I just don't know where to begin,
At this point I don't. Like, yes, I do, but also like I'm okay if this is my version of the comics. I never got super into it.
I think that's the fix I'm getting. I think that's why I'm so committed and I'm not getting overloaded with it, because like for me this is it. These are comic books for me, and this is my world of superhero stuff or whatever.
This is my jazz. This is my world.
Indeed.
Hell yeah. Well, as make sure you guys hit us up on all the places you hit us up, and leave comments, like us, review on the Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your sweet old podcasts. Send us kisses. Tell us what you think. If I should go for Nem's record with the Green Knight and try and see that in theaters that many times.
I don't know. Do you think you could do that? I feel like that'd be a rough one, especially.
I don't think it would be rough, but I do think that the universe would decree that would not be possible, just because it's not going to be in theaters that long.
True.
Because it's not Infinity War.
Yeah, so it has to be. Yeah, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. Sorry, did you have something to say?
No, I don't. Hey, I love you. As they say in Grand Budapest Hotel, he has his papers in order. Please leave us alone.